It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. Pete Francis alongside Willie Witten. Today, our special guest is Elles Bailey. She has a new album coming out on February 25th, Shining in the Half Light. Elles, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about that title, Shining in the Half Light.
So it was an album that was made during various lockdowns. And it's a song that the title track, Shining in the Half Light, was a song that was written with my friend Craig Lackey. Craig was in Nashville. I was in Bristol in the UK. We did the writing session over Zoom. And I came to him with this idea. I said, look, in the shower this morning, a little bit of shower inspiration, very, very important place to get inspiration. I was just thinking about this bizarre situation that we'd all found ourselves in, and how artists, entertainers, programmers, festival programmers, people putting on shows, all of that just stopped overnight. And still people just turned on their screens exactly like this. And this became the new normal. And I found it really inspiring in a time that was, quite frankly, so uninspiring. But I think the thing that inspired me most was the fact that not only were fans connecting with their artists that they loved or their comedians that they loved, but fans were coming together and connecting with each other on these various live streams. And you'd see the same names cropping up across lots of different artists. And it's like, people from the Netherlands were becoming friends with people from Ireland and people from the US. And I found that so inspiring in a time where, all of these barriers had, we were in isolation. We couldn't leave our houses, or, and suddenly people were still connecting with each other from all over the road. And that's what Shining in the Half Light is all about. That's what the song is all about. The dystopian life that we had been living, and kind of what we did to get through that. And the people who thought, you know what, I'm going to get on screen, warts and all. For me, I'm a singer-songwriter, but I've always surrounded myself with incredible musicians. They're the people that make me sound good. Suddenly they were gone. It was just me. It was just the piano, and occasionally I bring the guitar out, and it was like, okay, I only know one song on this, but I'm gonna give it a go. And so it was just the people who just decided to think, okay, I haven't got my band around with me anymore, but let's still try and connect with people. So that's what Shining in the Half Light is all about.
It's beyond the title. It's great to hear you speak about that, because it gives a lot of perspective. And you've said before that this was a very personal album to you. Which tracks on the album, obviously all of them are personal, this is your album, but which tracks to you are extremely personal, and what do they represent, and how did you come about writing them?
So the most personal track on the album is a track called Riding Out the Storm. That's just been released just in the last couple of days, right smack bang in like the biggest storm the UK has had since 1987. So I couldn't believe I picked that weekend, or this weekend, for Riding Out the Storm to come out. But that's written, it's about a relationship, and it was written with Joe Wilkins, who plays guitar on this record. He has collaborated with me since 2014. He was there basically from the beginning, from crashing on pub floors and, not getting any sleep, and driving a gazillion miles to get to Europe to play a gig for, absolutely no money. And, he's been there basically from the beginning. And we wrote that song together just before lockdown season 1. That's what I tend to call it for us. In the UK, it was the hot edition. We had amazing weather. So we wrote it just before lockdown season 1. And people, I don't know about you, but over here, they called COVID the Great Leveler, and how we were all in the same boat. And that's what the phrase was being used like at the beginning. And it was pretty obvious that we were not all in the same boat. Not at all. COVID was not the great leveler. And we have, however, all been in the same storm. And we're still riding out that storm. So we've all got our own stories to tell of this collective experience that we've had for the last couple of years. And, I wanted this whole record to sort of tell my story of the last 2 years.
And you've got a great voice that definitely shows on this album. How did you get your start singing?
Like the ABBA tune, basically. I think I could sing before I could talk. So I don't ever remember not being able to sing or like not wanting to sing. I have a very husky voice though, because I got very ill when I was younger. And I actually ended up being on a ventilator. I was I got the last ventilator in the hospital. So when March 2020 came around, it was also the 29th anniversary of me being put on a ventilator. So it all sort of,
wow.
It struck home just how lucky I was. And when they were talking about, we could run out of ventilators, I was like, I got the last ventilator during an epidemic of pneumonia in 1991. And I was on that ventilator for 17 days. And when I came off it, I had to relearn everything. I had to relearn how to talk, to walk, to eat. And when I started talking again, gone was my normal, little girl's voice. And in its place was like someone who smoked 60 a day. So that's the story of how I got these croaks. And a little bit of wine helps as well. So cheers, everybody.
Sure.
Perfect for the blues though, right?
Exactly. So I feel blessed though, because I was on tour in Germany actually probably like 2018, and I don't often tell the story of how I got my voice on stage. It's something that often gets spoken about in interviews and in print, but I never really talk about it on stage. And I was telling people the story, and this guy came up to me and he said, "My goodness, do you know why your voice is like that?" And I was like, I know how I got it, but I don't know why. He said, "I specialize in people with trauma on the vocal cords from being ventilated." And I was like, wow, of all the places that I could have told this story, it was right now here with you, with someone who had, was such a specialist subject. And he was like, "You're so lucky because you have walked away with a story and a voice, and so many people walk away with like permanent damage, not being able to communicate." So I know just how lucky I am.
All right, so Els, so that's the mechanical side of your voice. From more of the musical side and the inspirational side, did you have someone when you were younger then that taught you the music? Was there music in the household? Was there music in your, siblings or friends? Or how did you develop that part of your voice?
So my dad was in a rock and roll band. My mum is a gospel singer. So I just grew up. My brother plays guitar as well, and we were in a band together until I was 21. So I've just been surrounded by music my whole life. I would do anything to get up on stage with my dad and sing Great Balls of Fire and stuff like that. So I was sort of, just been surrounded by music.
And so from a young age, you had no stage fright. A lot of musicians still, you hear about what they do and they'll still say to this day, they still get nervous. When you go up on stage, do you still get those pre-show butterflies, or is this just the best thing in the world and it's where you feel free?
Yeah, I very, very rarely get pre-show butterflies. I think the times that I get them are when you're playing in front of your peers. So you're maybe playing a showcase festival. Yeah, I played Americana Fest in Nashville. It's those places that I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not just playing in front of fans, I'm playing in front of other musicians. Like that's the time where I get nervous. But generally, I love being on stage. The first time I went on stage after lockdown season 3 in the UK.
Which edition was that?
Yeah,
Talking about the hot edition. Which edition was season 3?
that was the season that just kept on going, and you're like,
Okay.
come on, guys, wind it up now, wind it up now. So it was June 2021, and I had a 2-month-old baby. I had we'd all been locked down, but I hadn't really emerged out of lockdown, and I hadn't really seen people, and I suddenly arrived at this rock festival with a 2-month-old, and I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this. And I walked on stage and I was nervous then. I cried. I cried on stage, but it was an amazing feeling, and just to be back, and the crowd were wonderfully forgiving as well. So that was great, because I'd forgotten all the words to all of my old songs. The new ones I was fine with, but the old songs, the ones I didn't practice, I just forgot all the words.
Who are some of your favorite singers today? Who inspires you?
Bonnie Raitt. I think she is just incredible. I had this beautiful story of a friend of mine. She's called Jo Harmon. She made a record in Nashville with a producer called Fred Molin, and Jo Harmon's manager messaged me whilst I was in Nashville and said, oh, you should meet up with Fred and sort of put us together. And so we'd organized to go for coffee, and then that day my distributors wanted me to have a meeting with someone else, so I had to be like, Fred, can we rearrange? I'm so sorry. And he said, no, not a problem. What are you doing this evening? I was like, oh, I've got no plans. It's the Americana Awards and I can't afford a ticket. He was like, do you want to come with me, because I've got tickets? And I was like, I'd love to. I had no idea who was playing, and I had no idea where the tickets were, but they were center, second row at the Ryman Theatre in Nashville. And on stage that night was 3 of my heroes, John Prine, Mavis Staples, and Bonnie Raitt. And I was like this far away from them. And then I got to meet Mavis Staples backstage, and I was like, how has this happened? And I got to see John Prine and Bonnie Raitt perform Angel from Montgomery, like a meter away from me. And I just cried. I cried my way through it, because I think that's one of the most beautiful songs ever written, and them performing it together. And then I released it as a single 3 days later. So it was just, it was a wonderful experience. So Mavis Staples is also another one of my vocalist heroes and musical heroes. And just, I think it's so important that the path that she's trodden to allow artists like me, and same with Bonnie as well, you know, they've been pioneers in their genres, and they've paved a way for artists like myself to have a career in music.
That's very cool. You've covered all 3 of those, your heroes, in different songs. I want to ask something. I'm going to go in a completely different direction. In this genre, Els, you don't see a ton of music videos. You just don't. So you release a couple more music videos than most people do, and they're extremely high quality. And for those who don't know, these aren't just Instagram, snippets. These are fully produced music videos. Why do you do that? And do you think that there's a place for the resurgence with things like YouTube music? Is there a place for the rebirth of a music video?
I do think music videos are really, really important, just in terms of, just trying to tell the story. I think my music is very story based. So I'd like to use a music video to try and tell the story of the song. And we live in a visual world where people, they want to see it as much as they want to hear it. I often, a lot of music videos I've done have just been made kind of backstage whilst I'm in the recording studio and stuff like that. So when I made Road I Call Home, my friend George flew over to Nashville with me and he filmed the whole thing. And then I used, I got a lot of music videos out of that, because I do think that, we also live in a world where people love to be behind the scenes. They want to know what's going on, so those music videos are, they're almost as popular as the big, pop kind of videos. What I will say is I found putting myself on camera for this album really hard and really stressful, probably because, you know, when I started sort of having to think about these music videos, I've just had a baby. You know, I definitely don't look like I did, you know, before I got pregnant and stuff like that. And I've been really nervous about sort of putting myself out there, and also because I haven't had that headspace as well. You know, I'm a new mum. I'm releasing my own album. I decided not to go with the record label and do it through my own label, and the music video has been a massive stress for me. However, I like the last two, The Game and Riding Out the Storm, they were fully produced by other people, so I didn't really have to get involved, and that was such a relief to sort of let that go and just sort of turn up and be like, okay, what do you need me to do?
Yeah, well, the videos for the new album are great. The album comes out February 25th. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Just, I really hope you guys enjoy it and enjoy the stories. And I'm so grateful to come on the show and talk to you both. And just thanks for the support. I really appreciate it.
Always.
Shining in the Half Light out February 25th. Elles Bailey, thanks so much for coming on the show. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Elles Bailey and Willie Witten, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.